started. Like I said, not too much, not anything too crazy today. So I'm actually doing the same presentation for Spanish 1 and 2. Like I said, let's see. Like I said, I hope that everybody had a good weekend. I know that a lot of you have been working, and I know this is our second to last class. We only have Thursday left. I know you guys are ready to be done, which I understand. So, like, we're not going to learn anything new with grammar today. We're more gonna, I know that Isaiah recommended last week that he'd like to talk a little bit about food and things like that. So I said that we can do that. I put together a little slideshow on like the national dishes of some countries in Latin America. And then I'll talk about what we're gonna do on Thursday. So, like I said, some of you requested food. Most countries in Latin America have a national dish, and many of these dishes were made and thought up by the country's working classes. So one thing, when we think of Latin American food, a lot of people think of like arroz y frijoles, which is like rice and beans, and that is a popular dish in many different areas in Latin America, but it's not all countries are like this. Like I know for sure Argentina, it doesn't really do the whole rice and beans thing, but when I studied abroad in Costa Rica, rice and beans was like a staple, like in every meal. Like you either ate it alone or with something else. Like even for breakfast, it was a little bit weird. But I have that some of these dishes are a little bit different than the food we hear. That is actually all of these dishes are different. So and I'm pretty picky, so like not all of this stuff sounds real good for me, but we'll talk about that then. So let me know what you guys think of some of this food. So just to start out with the national dishes, in Argentina, they have something called asados, which is like grilled fresh meat on an open fire, and they add something called chimichurri sauce. And obviously you can't see the sauce there, but they like grill like all different types of meats and things like that. Asado actually means grilled. So they like the meat is a big staple in Argentine cuisine. And you can see that there's no like rice or beans or anything on that. So that's a little bit different. I never had this. Doesn't look all that appetizing to me, but I'd try it. In Bolivia, they have something called salteñas, and it's a type of empanada, which I'm sure that you guys have heard of. But it's not like your typical empanada. It says that the filling is more like liquidy, kind of like a soup. Um, and what makes it like that is they use like the main ingredient is gelatin, which is like jello. And empanada actually means like wrapped in bread. So instead of like meat and cheese and vegetables and stuff, it's like a gelatin material, which that sounds a little bit different, but I'd try it. So I never had either one of these, so I'm not sure if they're good. And then Brazil is kind of considered Latin America. Most people in Brazil speak Portuguese, but there definitely is still some Spanish speaking people there, so I thought that I would share it anyway. So they have something called feijoada, and it's a mix of rice, which you can see, the meat, the beans, the collard greens, and just like a mix of everything. And it said some variations of it are spicier than others, and many families like make their own version. So there's not really like one recipe to this. It's kind of like whatever you prefer, and people do like a bunch of different stuff with that. In Chile, they have pastel de choclo, which has indigenous and colonizer influences. So there's meat in this, which comes from like European culture, and there's a lot of corn in it, which comes from the indigenous population. Chile has a pretty large indigenous population. It's considered to be a meat casserole, and it has like a corn crust on it, which you can kind of see. Some people put different types of meat in it, like pork and beef and things like that. And sometimes they add things to the top, like hard-boiled eggs and olives, and then it's baked in the oven, which you can tell. I had a little bit of feijoada, which is pretty good. Um, I've actually never had pastel de choclo, so I don't know if that's good, but I'd try it. In Colombia, they have something called bandeja paisa, and it's a dish from Medellin, which is a city in Colombia. If you say actually that if someone is paisa or something is paisa, that literally means that they're from Medellin. So that's like so it's from Colombia, but it's from the city of Medellin. And this kind of like this looks a little bit like a breakfast to me, but it's really not. Like I said, there's the beans, the rice, there's sausage, there's egg. Some people add plantains, which are kind of like bananas if you've never had them. They definitely taste different than bananas, but they look like bananas. Some people add avocado and fried pork belly. I don't know how that sounds, but I mean, I don't know. But they're usually served with an arepa, which is like a Colombian version of a tortilla. So it's a little bit it's not it's like a corn flour tortilla, things like that. You know what I'm talking about. Um and where I studied abroad, Costa Rica, they have something called Gaiopindo, and this is what it looks like. And it's rice, beans, and some people add a traditional seasoning sauce called Lizano. And from the experience that I had when I was there, many Costa Ricans eat this meal almost every day. And you can see it's like in like a ball shape. They actually do this. I don't know how they get it to stay like that. But definitely after a month of being here, I was really sick of the rice and beans because I mean we'd eat breakfast and it was like eggs and rice and beans, and then it was like lunch with rice and beans. Like I got a little bit like tired of it. Like I ended up going to like Taco Bell every day for lunch. But so so there's that. And it's really simple. It's rice, beans, and sometimes people add the seasoning sauce, which the seasoning sauce is pretty good. But I'm sure some of you have had something like that before. In Cuba, they make something called ropa vieja, and they say that it translates to dirty clothes, which like it kind of actually does, but vieja actually means old, and ropa is clothing, so it actually means old clothes, but they translate it as dirty clothes. And this dates all the way back to medieval Spain. It's definitely interesting because when Cuba was colonized by Spain, the Spanish brought this dish with them, and Cubans have added their own like type of flair to this. So most times it has like beef, which you can see it's like shredded beef, like kind of like roast beef, tomatoes, onions, peppers, and spices. And a lot of times it's made from like leftovers from stew. Like I said, this is made by like a lot of working class people. So they would use like all parts of the food that they had because a lot of times couldn't afford food and things like that. So they would use the leftovers to make something else. And I think that's why it's called dirty clothes because it's like all the leftovers. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I'm thinking. Um, in El Salvador, they make something called pupusa, which is like soft tortillas filled with hot cheese and beans. They say that they're hard to make because they're soft tortillas and it's hard to keep like their round shape. I've never made them, so I'm not sure. And some people, not always, but some people top them with shredded cabbage, lime juice, a sweet red sauce, and cheese, which this one doesn't really look like it's topped with anything, but sometimes I do top them with that. This actually kind of sounds pretty good. Never had it. I did have ropa vieja, and it's like okay, it's different. Like if you're like used to American food, this stuff is like really different. But I actually learned to like ropa vieja. So there's that. Um, so in Guatemala, they have something called pepian, which is a type of stew. as you can see, with slow roasted seeds and peppers. And the orange color that it has comes from pumpkin seeds. And they usually, it's a type of stew, so it's hot. They serve it with rice and corn tortillas. I personally like flour tortillas more, but corn ones aren't bad. And I have indigenous influences here because Guatemala also has a large indigenous population, and their the like the seeds and stuff like that is very very like an indigenous type thing. And a lot of people like live in high altitudes in the mountains, so they use like hot stews and hot soups and things like that to stay warm. So that's one of those things. In Honduras, they have something called baleadas, which is, and you can see it there. It's a cross between tacos, the pupusas that we talked about before, and quesadillas. And it's like a flour tortilla, and it has some beans, avocado, cheese, and onion in it. And some people add meat. I don't really know what kind of meat. I would assume that it's probably beef or pork of some sort. And it's like a street food. So in a lot of Latin American countries, like you can walk along the street and they have like food trucks and things like that, like we have in Philadelphia. And you can buy this like on the street. It's like it's a very like common thing to be able to buy. And in Mexico, which some of you have probably heard of, they have something called mole, which isn't a type of food, but it's a type of sauce, and it's very different. You can see that the sauce is the brown stuff over the meat here. And it's made with chicken broth, chiles, which is a type of spice, and chocolate, which is a little bit weird, but it's a type of sauce for meats and enchiladas, and it's sweet and spicy, hence the chiles and chocolate. And they say, I've never had this, but I don't really know if that looks good to me. But a lot of people put like the sauce over like a type of sweet meat. Like some people put it over beef and things like that. So there's that. In Panama, they have something called sancocho, which I actually think that this looks pretty good. It's lots of chicken, which you can see there's chicken. They use like large pieces of corn on the cob, so they actually like cut it with a knife and put the entire like cob into it. And cassava root, which is a type of vegetable. And it is like a hot dish, like a stew. But Panama is extremely warm, but it's still like one of their things. So that actually looks pretty good. And then Paraguay, they have something called sopa paraguaya, which sopa means soup, but obviously this is not a type of soup. It's a type of cornbread casserole. So it's like cornbread in a pan and they bake it. And it's eaten with a type of stew, chili, or like roast, which is like beef. So there's that. It's not really a dish on its own. It's kind of a side dish. In Uruguay, they have chivito, which obviously, there you go, is a type of sandwich. Chivito literally translates to little goat. Chivo means goat, so chivito is little goat. And some people put bacon, egg, ham, steak, melted cheese, lettuce, and tomato on this. And you can see in this picture, it's served with French fries. So there's that. And that actually looks kind of good, not gonna lie. And then the last one that I have is in Venezuela. They have something called pabellón criollo, and it's the Venezuelan version of Gaiopindo, which we talked about in Costa Rica. And the rice and beans, as you can see, are separated to resemble the Venezuelan flag, and meat is added to resemble like the red part. And then some people add the fried plantain chips. So the beans represent the blue part of the flag, the rice represents the yellow part, and the meat represents the red part. And this looks like some type of beef. And these are fried plantain chips, which I've had them, not really a fan, but there's that. And then I just wanted to add in 2 different types of desserts, which are amazing. So Tres Leches cake is like one of like my favorite things in the world. So I don't know if you've ever had it, but it's a staple in many Latin American countries, but most of the versions that I've tried originated in Mexico. I have like a lot of like Mexican shops and things, bakeries, things like that around where I live. So when I want Tres Leches cake, I just go there and buy it there. And Tres Leches literally means three milks. Tres is three, Leches is milks. And they call it that because it's literally made from three different types of milk. And it's like a type of sponge cake, and it's soaked in evaporated milk, heavy cream, and condensed milk. And some people also use butter. This one in the picture here doesn't look like it's all that saturated. Like some of the ones that I get, like the milk is actually like coming out of it, like it's like so moist. It's definitely probably not healthy, but it's very delicious. And if we were in person, like if I was doing this lesson in person, I probably would have brought some. So very good. I don't know if anybody's had it, but it's delicious. And then another popular dessert that they use is something called flan. And it's a type of custard dessert. I don't really know if this is like from Latin America because it has like a bunch of different names, but a lot of people eat it there. It's like a clear caramel sauce, creme brulee, and it has like a hard caramel layer on the top, and it's sometimes called caramel custard in like the US. So if you're not a caramel person, this is probably definitely not for you. And like I said, most types of flan come from Cuba, but other countries have their own versions and recipes. Most of the flan that I've had comes from Mexico, so it's a little bit different looking than this, but almost the same. So now that we went through that, has anyone ever tried any of these before? Would you like to try them? Like, does any of this sound good to anybody? No? I'm like, yeah, I know a lot of it's different. So, and I have here, if anybody wants like recipes for any of these, I have some of them. So, you can email me and I'll send them to you if you want to like try this stuff on your own. Um, so, I mean, some of like the ingredients and some of them are hard to find in the United States just because people don't really use them too much. But in Philadelphia, you could probably find a lot of it at like a Latin market or something like that. So, does anybody have any questions on any of the dishes? Anybody want to tell me if they want to try them, if they have tried them before, anything like that? No? Okay. So that was literally what I had for today, just to talk about the food and stuff like that. Because like I said, I didn't want to do any more of like grammar and things like that because we only have a class left. I am gonna have lab today from 1 to 2. Um, so just because if anybody needs help getting caught up on their work or has any questions or anything like that, you can come to lab and we'll talk about that. Um, so for our last class, I'd like to get like your feedback on this class for this term. I'd like to think about like what you thought about the class overall, what you would have liked to learn, what you really liked, what you didn't like, things like that. And I'd like to use your suggestions to improve my curriculum and teaching style. Um, and also, that's probably not going to take up the whole class. So I'm thinking I might do a short like presentation on Costa Rica and like what that was like. I can also do a little bit on Spain too, because I visited Spain right after I graduated high school. So I could do that too. But so I'm gonna stop the share and then